Hello, welcome. This is going to be a very special video. I've been wanting to do a discussion of the Moon Oracle decks since I got it probably about 2 years ago. And I use it exclusively when I do my discussions for Mystic Moon Mondays, because I talk about moon energy, the phases of the moon, the signs that fall into these different phases of the moon, and discuss how it affects us on an everyday level. So I'm catching up with topics that I've wanted to discuss and share. And I'm now down to my last topic as of now, which is the Moon Oracle. So what I want to do here with this discussion is give an introduction to the deck, give a breakdown of the decks that are or the cards that are featured here, because they are broken up into 3 different sections: the moon phases, the moon mansions, and goddesses. And I will break those down and discuss that in this video, and the importance when it comes to these different phases of the moon, from waxing to full to waning to new moon and going around the circle again. And the mansions, how they can guide us into more specifics of what's going on in a reading. And then our goddesses, which are affiliated with the moon, there are archetypal guides throughout this reading, throughout the reading that is being done. So I will give a short example of a reading. Again, I'm not set up to have a second camera, so it's not going to be as clear so that you could see it, but I will show a diagram of the layout and the cards that I chose. And then come Monday, this Monday I will be doing Mystic Moon Mondays episode. I'll do a reading based on the phase that the moon is in at that time, the sign that's in, and just give like a general reading about how the week ahead could be looking, using this deck exclusively. So let's get into this. I'm going to introduce you to the book, some of the details. There's going to be a lot of astrology talk in this video. And as many of you know, I'm putting more of an emphasis of astrological signs, planets, and houses into my readings. And this in turn has deepened the way that I do readings, the meanings that I get from them, the guides that I have. It's been a wonderful journey. And I explored this last summer. I was starting to read a little bit about astrology and the tarot, and then my hands got a hold of a deck that focused exclusively on the astrological decans in relation to the tarot, minor, major arcana, and that completely flipped my world around. So I do those astrological decan readings about every 8 to 10 days. So that's my introduction to how I got into this. But primarily, this deck, the Moon Oracle, it introduced me into the workings of the energy of the moon and the signs of influence when they are placed in the moon and the phases that they're in. That kind of wet my whistle into astrology. And then the Unified Esoteric Tarot came into my hands, and everything else has changed. So let's go right into it. This is the Moon Oracle. It's the guidebook, Carolyn Smith and John Astrop, who passed away about 4 years ago. But I am very grateful for this book and deck that was created. It's very straightforward. It's no nonsense. There's there's keywords in all the deck, all the cards, but it doesn't go into paragraphic explanations of what these cards are. There's no need to. As you spend time working with this deck, learning the elemental influences, the phases, the moon mansions, and the goddesses and how they all work together, it becomes natural. It's just a different way of doing a tarot reading. This is basically a moon astrology oracle reading based on the questions that's being asked. So let me drink a little bit of water here. Let me go ahead and introduce you to the moon phases within this deck. There are 32 total, representing fire, earth, air, and water. There are 8 phases in each of these elements. As to how I'm going to explain everything to you. So here we have the moon phases, and they are numbered from 1 to 8. Okay, and I'm not going to make this a flip through, but I'm just going to show each of these elements, the 8 phases in each of these elements very quickly. Okay, so here we go for crescent, waxing. These are all fire influences, and here's our key phase. If you look here, we start seeing the early stages, and here we get the moon phases all the way from full, which we are here in the center, all the way to new, and then we go back again. There's crescent. There's our first quarter waxing. So these cards are numbered as light is gaining, which is waxing. Gibbous means that we're there. The moon is full. As I'm recording this, we're going to have our full moon in Libra. And this is the last phase before it goes completely full. Then we have our full moon. And then we see as these phases wax and wane. So here we see recognition. All the work, everything that has been building up to this phase, shows the completed state, the satisfaction that comes out of it, the recognition. And then here we start waning, disseminating. So we're going to start moving towards our new moon. So we have disseminating, confidence. So we still have some fullness of light coming from the moon, but it's starting to weaken. And then we see opposition. And I need to point out, and I'll do it in the other cards, we have the 8 stages of plant growth. That's featured in all of these. Compromise. Again, these are energies for the fire signs. These are energies that relate to Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So when the moon's in any of these fire signs, these are the cards and the signs that are related to these specific moon phases. Recharge, we rest that energy. And so again, I mentioned about the plant phases. Okay, so here we're moving into Earth. Okay, so we see shoots. So we're starting to see from the new moon, the balsamic stage where seeds were planted. New moon, everything's dormant. You let it rest, you let it do that. That energy is on a temporary hiatus. It's recharging, it's rejuvenating, and then we get into the shoots as the light starts gaining. It's like the sunlight. When the sunlight comes out, we start seeing buds starting to open. We have leaves. So from the shoots, you could sort of think of the shoots as the stalk of a plant, and then we start seeing the leaves. And I mentioned the buds right here. So we're starting to see from the leaves, we're starting to see those buds starting to develop. And then the full moon, they open. Okay, so this is the word that they flower or blossom. Okay, and then there's the fruit. We're still with that energy of the full moon, but it's starting to wane. So we're taking notice of what has already grown, what has already been of essence, the fruit stage. And then again, moonlight's waning. So we have the fall. There's less light coming in, there's less of an energy source coming in, and we're going through the natural stages of growth. And then as whatever is no longer of life and it falls, there's seeds that are still planted. Like we see the acorns and various kinds of seeds from plants and flowers that just fall. These seeds go into the ground. They get the sustenance that they need by water, oxygen, sunlight, the earth that it's actually homing itself in, and then stays dormant, and it builds that cycle up again. So again, we go through all these phases. And again here, with these elemental influences, this, okay, green, this represents all the earth signs. So we're looking at Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. For air, same thing. But visually, we start seeing the representation image-wise change. Okay, we still have shoots. We see the element, the alchemical element for air. But visually, this deck is abstract, but you can still see every nuance of the energy as here, first quarter waxing moon, influenced through air. So we're looking at the air signs of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So we start seeing leaves, almost like mirrored images. Then we start seeing buds. These can represent the buds. So we have the shoot, the leaves, the buds, and then we have the flower. Mandala like it. Well, it's interesting too, is I like this. We see the triple moon goddess through its phases, and we see here solution for the full moon. And again, this is coming from the air aspects. So these are influences of the moon. Let's say it's the waning moon and its disseminating phase in, let's say, Libra. So when we see here again, the movement here on the bottom. So with the waning moon in Libra, we could see the energy still there. The communicative aspect of what we've been working on is still apparent. And we're watching how things are shaping up. The key here is reputation. So everything that has been discussed, everything that has been agreed on, we're sticking to it. We're maintaining good standing with what was discussed in the conversation and ideas that were put into a project. Here we're still waning. Okay, so here we start seeing, visually I just want you to see. Okay, so here we have the fruit. So here we start seeing the energy. The energy is starting to drop. And we get the keyword of challenge, okay, because it's energy of the air element is starting to lessen. And then we have here concession. Kind of trying not to push too much of our thoughts and our communicative actions out so much. Just kind of ease up and let's see how things are going to be with what's already been created. And then we have the aspect of seeds. And then we go back to dormant, black moon, new moon, dark moon. Revision. And always with the new moon, it's not a time of physical action putting out there. It's just a time of planning and looking ahead as to what are the next steps that are going to be accomplished. And we start waxing, start moving that energy again. Okay, and lastly here, we have the water elements. Our water influences are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And they're held in different personalities. We have fixed, cardinal, and mutable. And we take that into account too when doing readings with this deck. All aspects of astrology, with the exception of the houses. So here the same thing, shoots. So if you look closely, you have to sit and spend time with these cards, because when you want to start focusing on the energy of regrowth and starting the cycle again. Here for water, we just start seeing little tendrils that are building. And again, this deals with the emotional side, our intuitive side. And leaves. So remember those tendrils? Just compare. Okay, so now we're starting to see shape. Emotionally, we're starting to feel some confidence. We're starting to see things and feel things a little bit more here with the first quarter. Emotionally starting to build confidence in a situation or within ourselves. Okay, and that is the leaves, and then we have the buds. Okay, so we're feeling that growing desire, like we're getting closer to getting emotional clarity on things. And the moon greatly plays influence on water signs. Even though the moon is the luminary influence for Cancer, across the board, Pisces and Scorpio rule very strongly by the moon energy because it is water influenced. Here we have fulfillment. So we're seeing the full moon. So everything is, I want to say you already feel like you know where things are at this point. You've gotten clarity. You feel, again, depending on the signs, that you can take better control of what's going on and get more answers. So here we have the fulfillment. Everything emotionally has flowered. You feel heart-wise more connected to what's going on, and that uncertainty opens up to certainty, more clarity. And then here we have commitment, fruit. So again, we still have that full moon still playing a role, but it's starting to lessen. And so we're seeing what has been already done. So this is almost like the 10 card, I feel. The fruit stage and all these different moon phases. I feel this is a 10 card because we've already had the completion. Now we start making those steps towards how we're going to manage this. Different ways of doing commitments and being dedicated emotionally to what's going on. And then we have the last quarter where things are 50-50, light and dark. I'm also going to talk about the position of the first quarter versus last quarter and how the energy moves from north, south, east, west. Because these 8 different phases also work circularly, navigationally, like north, northeast, southeast, south, southwest, so on and so forth. So here we start seeing manipulation. We have to be careful during this phase with the water signs. This is where things can get a little blurred. Miscommunication emotionally can happen. Not seeing things for what they fully are. Being misled. This could be manipulation coming from outside, from an external source, or coming from you. Could be the manipulator within yourself and also to other people. So it's time to be very, very careful. Okay, so the balsamic is the crescent moon waning. So last phase, last 2.5 days. And again, similar to manipulation, we have the solutions can again be unclear. This is a time just to be careful. Don't take any actions. I feel personally when the moon is waning, that energy is slowing down. So again, depending on the sign that it's in and that elemental influence that that sign represents and the phase that the moon is in, especially waning, let's slow the energy down. For fire signs, waning energy is kind of hard because we have to maintain that control and balance. As the energy waxes and gains and we start building that momentum to completion, we now need to come down and slow things down. So with fire signs, you kind of want to keep that energy going because it's like, oh yeah, I got this complete. Let's keep going. This is when the moon is waning. This is like a time of just reflection, slowing that energy down, reassessing what has been done, and the same here. Same with the waning stage for water and all the other elements. But water specifically, we have to be careful, very sensitive. And then we have the new moon, so isolation. So as you see with these cards, dormancy, it is that time just to like recharge. No action, no physical action, no signing contracts or anything. No making commitments. It's the time to think about what you are going to be facing ahead. And the new moon is actually a good time just for that. It allows all that energy that have been building up and the mind have been thinking all of these different attributes towards a project to just slow down. You'll be surprised if you focus on the phases of the moon, the signs that they're in, their elemental influence, also planetary influences outside of the moon. But focus specifically on the moon. You'll find if you work with those phases, like here we're waxing, we're in the full moon in Libra, you'll find the energy, even if your moon is in Libra or isn't, but if you harness that energy, you will reap benefits from it. It's an influential time for that sign during this moon phase. And the same with the waning, If you need things to slow down, look and see where we are with the moon and work with that energy. And so I'm a strong proponent of this. It works. It works. If you sit down, journal how you're feeling, and keeping track of the phases of the moon, so on and so forth, you'll start seeing these interesting patterns develop. And sometimes waxing moon, full moon is sometimes too much energy. It could be just way too much. Even if it's in your sign or not, there's something that's just making the mind, like just maybe overthinking, over planning. Just bring it down. Just bring it down a notch. Just slow down. Do something that's opposite that can quell that energy down. If you feel the full moon energy is a little too frenetic for you, a little bit too much, put in an opposing element. Focus on an earth sign that is grounding. Maybe put some Taurus into that influence. Put some grounding into it. Okay, so those are the 8 phases for each of the elements in relation to their signs. So again, for here, they represent the fire signs of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, waxing, waning moon. Earth, so we have Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Air, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And then water. So that'd be Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. I mentioned earlier, we have to show it from the book because I don't think it's going to be too clear. I mentioned with the 8 moon phases, I already mentioned about the plant stages, the growths. We have the shoots, the leaves, the buds, the flower, the fruit, the fall, seeds, and the degrees that the moon moves in. So I'm going to show you this really quick. So I'll give a brief description, then I'll show you this. When the moon is at its darkest, it's facing north. We won't be able to see it, but it's the placement of where the dark new moon is. And that is placed when it's in its darkest phase. It's actually positioned between the earth and the sun. So right here, I can't wait to get a second camera so I could just do a down shot. So here we have north. And then here, as we go this direction, I'm sorry, going backwards, we start seeing the light gaining. So we're going from north to northeast. Okay, just think everything rises in the east. Sun rises in the east. And here we see the moon as it's gaining light, northeast. Then when it's in its first quarter, it's east. Southeast as it's becoming gibbous. And then here, south, when it's at its fullest. And then we have southwest. Remember, sun sets in the west. So the energy starts waning. Energy gains on the eastern part of this rotation. And then on the western part, as it's setting, waning, you have southwest. And this is disseminating. Here we have their last quarter in the east. So here we have, in the west. So as it's setting, the moon, the last quarter of the moon, where we start seeing darkness is on the west side. When we start seeing light gaining, it's on the east side. And then here we have northwest as it's balsamic, as it's growing darker. And then we have here back to the north. So we start seeing that cycle as the moon rotates around the earth. And when the moon is full, right here, we see it opposing the sun. And it's right here below. So it's getting all the light. It's being the reflection. The sun represents who we are externally. Here's the full moon. revealing, exposing full vitality with the sun. And we see this from the earth perspective. But then when the moon comes here in the north position, it's blocked. So it's placed between the earth and the sun. If you follow with your practice, the placement of where the sun is, when it rises and when it sets, remember everything active is in the east, starts rising. That's why when people ask, what's your rising sign? That's the planet that was the planet and sign that was at the time of birth, rising in the eastern horizon. So everything, energy is increasing, waxing on the east side, and then things setting on the west is waning energy. Another thing I wanted to point out too is let me see something here. Bear with me here 1 second. Okay, I already stated that. I want to talk a little bit about your birth moon, your moon sign, basically. So people know about their moon sign, and the way to find the moon sign, you do need to have your time. You need to know your time of birth because that also affects the rising sign and also the position that the moon was in at the time that you were born. Now, one thing that I want to bring up is people talk, yeah, my moon's in Leo, but do you know what phase your moon was in? So again, we have all these different phases from waxing, full, to waning, to new moon, and the cycle goes again. Knowing what phase your moon is in is also of importance because that also dictates emotionally the energy that you will more or less have as an influence when in life, when doing work, dealing with yourself, how you approach things, what's the action that you take, and that's based on the phase that your moon's in. So when you look at your chart, you normally just see the degree, the time, minutes, seconds that the moon and the planets and the sun was in. But pay attention to the phase that the moon was in. So usually if you were born during a full moon or new moon, it stays in that phase for about 3.5 days. And when someone is born during a full moon, this is someone who's more objective towards things. They want to be recognized for their achievements because of that fullness, that brightness, that illuminating phase that the moon is in. It's a time to shine. So you want people to be aware of your actions and what you've done. So you tend to push emotionally more on that side. The new moon is more on the subjective side. They're more particular. They tend to influence those around them based on their actions. They can be impulsive at times and sometimes critical. And not that the new moon is a negative thing because there's that energy, oh yeah, it's a dark moon and stuff, but just kind of keep in mind the properties of what the new moon is. It's a time of self-reflection and taking care of oneself. And so, but also by your actions, what are you doing during this phase? And how that could be of influence to people outside. So kind of be aware of what you're doing because you may not be aware that what you're doing is actually showing signs off to other people. And then we have, it's called the 8 phase personality types. The crescent moon, which I could show here, for example, using the fire. Someone who has actions, they are self-assertive, they are, go-getters, they're self-initiators. They are excited about getting things going, getting things started. You have to also be careful because these actions that you're taking during the crescent moon can also reflect from something that's happened in the past, something that may have been of experience to you, and it may be overwhelming. So just kind of be aware of that. It's great to jump into things and, get that new excitement like we are in spring. This is the crescent state of where we are right now as we're building up. But sometimes all this excitement and building up is something reflecting from the past and something that we may be subconsciously hiding or running away from. So something to be careful with. First quarter deals with taking charge. There's something drawing you. Okay, we're still in the first quarter waxing. There's something that's drawing you to have to do something. There's a set of responsibility, value that's needed to be taken into what you're working on. There's that security. You really want to make what you're working on to be secure and something to be trusted upon, to build from. So we're taking that energy from the crescent moon, we're getting things going, and now we're putting it into form. We're trying to see the best way how to use this energy so that it's more controlled, more organized, and this is for the first quarter personality type. Our gibbous, we're getting closer to the full moon. This is where growth, we want to see how things are growing. We want to be more of a contributor to society. You want to make a difference. Your goals in life are very clear for people who are in the gibbous state. Okay, and that's the very last crescent before we get to the full moon. You're focused on ideas. You're very sharp, and you're very dedicated to what you put your ideas and your actions into. You want to see everything that you're putting into manifest and grow. So this is where your belief system and trust and investment in what you're putting into is going to be solid. And then we have the full moon personalities I mentioned. They want to make a difference in the world. Things that they are achieving, they want not so much for it to affect them, but to affect the world. They want that influence to be played out to other people. Okay, so disseminating practicality into use by learning, by teaching, mentoring, sharing this experience to others. Once you find something that you feel is of value, of potential, you hold on to it in the sense, and you want to nurture it, you want to work with it. And in doing so, anyone who's born during this disseminating waning phase, again, they see the potentiality in something, and they will stick to it. Similar to the gibbous moon, you're putting your investment into things. But here with this energy, you're taking it more in a slower state. You really want to see things inside out, up, down, left, right. You really want to see what you are putting your time into, and to make sure that what you are investing in will eventually become of success. Our last quarter, I'll show you the last quarter. So as I'm talking, you can follow through. I'm going to pull something from the air. So for our last quarter, this is more someone who's idealistic. And this applies to all the signs, all the elements. There's more of morals and values and attitudes that are during this last quarter. We're waning at this point. It's a time where you start preparing for things, for the future. Again, it's making an impression at this time, but this is something long term. It's something that you may not see while you're on this planet, while you're on this universe, but you're setting the grounds, you're setting the ideas, you're setting the root work for something that you feel will be carried on through others. But you want to make sure that everything is all tied up, secured. This is a card that is of integrity, or not card, but the phase, the last quarter. How much pride you put into something, and the outcome. What would you like to see from it? The next generation. This is something long term for the last quarter. The balsamic. It's 3.5 days before the new moon. Okay, so these are personality types. The balsamic isn't necessarily for a particular sign, but just overall the personality of the balsamic just before our new moon. These are people who tend to be a little bit more on the visionary side, thinking long term. They have an idea, they have an intuition of how the future can be. And it's almost natural. You feel like where you've been placed in this world, in this this calling that you have, there's a reason for it. And you're moving towards this. The feelings are very strong. You're very connected with this particular direction that you're going to. You feel it within your heart. It's like, I know I need to do this. You're impassioned by this. It's like, I got to do this. I feel it in my heart. And there's quite a few people that feel like they know that they've been put on this planet to do something, and they will pursue it, as long as, to their last breath. And again, like the last quarter phase, we start seeing things into the future that we would like to manifest. And if we don't feel it, if we don't see it to its culmination, we start planting those seeds. We start looking at that and having the next group of people carry on with that. And then we have the dark moon. Okay, people who are the personality types of the dark moon. As I mentioned, they see things in a subjective way. They can sometimes be in the dream realm because the dark moon is just that. There's no light. I'm not saying that there's no direction, but energy-wise, it tends to be a void, and it's a time where making decisions, emotional decisions, can be challenging. And that's what I was saying during a dark moon phase. Don't make any choices. Don't do anything active in that state. Just carefully feel how things are. So you see people that are around you, but the way you perceive them is actually different for who they actually are. You feel something of a particular person. This is your impression. And that's where the illusion comes in. Like, no, I think this person is not really trustworthy, or this person is wonderful. Look at this, But it ends up being, there's a little bit more that's going on that you don't fully see. And you need to be aware of that. But also your actions. As I mentioned earlier, you can influence those around you. So just be careful of your actions and how you perceive things, because that could be influential to people in either a good or bad way. These are people who were born during the new moon, dark moon. Take this with a grain of salt, okay? But it's also a time where it's new beginnings. The new moon, as I said, is a time where there's no light. So it's a time to start working towards that waxing energy when it starts building up, and start making changes. Start putting forth positive energy. Not that you're not doing it in the waning phase, but start putting things where maybe you've healed and now you have a different perspective on things. So those are different personality types of the different phases of the moon. So that's something to look into. If you go to various online websites, astrological websites, you will find different sites that will tell you what phase your moon was in when you were born. And then you could get a little bit of an idea as to that personality type. And also when it's either waxing, waning, when it's in any of these 8 stages, it gets emphasized by that sign that it's in. So if you're like, there's a lot of information. So I want to keep moving ahead. So those were the birth moon phases, the different characteristics that come from that. Alrighty. So we have the same elementally. We still have the influence that we see in our astrological signs related to the moon. So the fire signs that are related to the sun, the fire signs that are related to the moon still hold the same energy. Just remember its main source of influence, the sun and then the moon. Okay, so the sun is more of our exterior, how our essence of who we are, personality and whatnot. The rising is obviously different. The rising represents the ego, the self, how we take this shell of who we are and how we emote it, how we put it forth to the world, what they see. So that's our rising. Then the moon is the internal side. Okay, so the sun is like our personality that was set to us at the time that we're born. Our rising is the self, the ego, how we take that energy of that rising sign and how we exteriorly present it out to people. And then, of course, the moon sign's emotional. So with fire, I'm going to break this up really quick. Since we are in the season of spring, fire is creative energy. It is initiating, taking action, putting things on a set intention, creating something out of nothing, knowing what energy to put, knowing how much energy, what kind of energy to put towards something to make it happen. It's like putting your focus and remaining there. All distractions pass away so that you can put that energy and nurture what you are having that strong intention to. Air, okay, so the mind. Intellect, wide spectrum of ideas, how we communicate, different ways we communicate, how we communicate through social media, writing, how we interact socially, and how we move that energy of the mind. Do we do it quickly? Do we do it methodically? Do we take our time and just, get back to the person whenever because you're still thinking about it? The pace of how one communicates. Also, air relates to education, learning, expanding the mind, also relating to short trips. So all of this is very similar to natal astrology, the sun aspects and the personalities of these different elements, but it also applies to the moon. And earth, physical, tangible things, our health, material, our possessions, how we work with these different attributes. The potential for growth into something that's already there and making it better. And that includes ourself, how we are with authority. How do we take our own authority? Do we respect it? Do we have any authority for ourselves? Also, how we see authority from the outside, government, police. Our skills, our achievements. Also, social prominence. Everything that we've worked for, where are we placed? It's also a form of recognition. Are we well known for, this is again for Earth, are we being seen and respected for what we're doing? As a teacher, as a healer, as a entertainer, are we feeling that respect? Are we feeling that everything that we've been working on, that we're getting some sort of some form of recognition of all that hard work? So that's for Earth. Water, that's the emotional aspects of our lives, of course. The relationships, how we work, how we move, how we relate to emotions, our subconscious fears, memories. Water shapes who we are, just like the moon. It goes through our phases, we have good times, good moments, and bad moments. How we adapt our feelings in various situations. This could be socially, in our living environment, how we interact with people on a one-to-one basis or in a group. How do we work emotionally in groups, and how we see ourselves as well. Water I feel is the strongest element out of all of these three. Water can submerge Earth. Water can obviously extinguish fire. Regarding water and air, that's a tough one. But when you put water and air together, it makes steam. It's almost like a compliment, because steam is still a matter of air and moisture. And that air is dissipating that moisture around. And air can be taken away from us as well. But I feel water overall, water is our strongest essence for survival. So it's a very powerful element that we need to be more honed with and connected with and understand and respect our own feelings. So that's a breakdown of the elemental signs in relation to the moon, but they also apply to the sun energy. I need to briefly clarify those two. But with the moon mansions, there's 28, and each of them represent a certain degree and also placement of astrological sign and planetary influence. So it is similar to the astrological decans that I've been doing with the tarot. But the planet placement is different. I was hoping that it was going to be similar, but it's different, but it's actually easy to follow because here, throughout the signs in the moon mansions, the signs and the planets are related. And so, for instance, for Aries for the first decan, first part of the moon mansion is Mars. And then the second is Leo, which is the planet or the star, if you will, the luminary of the sun. And then Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So for Aries, it represents those fiery aspects and those fire signs or fire energy planets. In Taurus, we have Venus. So for the first mansion. And then our second mansion is Virgo, Mercury. And then Capricorn is again representing the Earth. And that's with Saturn, Gemini, Mercury, Venus, Libra. So these planets will repeat. And then Uranus and Aquarius. Okay, so with each of these mansions, as they go through the astrological month, their planet and sign will relate elementally for that astrological month. So for Taurus, it's going to be earth signs. For Cancer, it's going to be water signs. Leo, going back to the fire signs. It repeats itself, but it's in a different cycle. Like for Leo, it's the first influence would be the sun, because that's the luminary that rules the sun, or that rules Leo. And then Jupiter, Sagittarius, and then Mars and Aries. So we start moving seasonally as we go through the mansions as well. So here's our first mansion, and here we see Mars and the sun. And in this deck, we have the degree 0, 12, 51. So each of these decans are represented 1251 instead of 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, which I use with my tarot, the astrological decans for that. And you will see here, this is our musician for Aries. And here we start seeing Sun and Jupiter. So we start seeing a complementary interaction between, we could say, Leo and Sagittarius here. And then we start transitioning from Aries into Taurus. And here we see Jupiter and Venus. And look here again. We have 2543 for Aries and 834 for Taurus. So again, these are the degrees. These are fixed. They're not set. So these are fixed to show how much of an influence position-wise with the moon mansion. So here we're seeing more of a heavy influence of Aries, and then we start seeing Taurus coming in at 8:34 degrees, and then we start seeing this influence with Jupiter and Venus. And we could read this as Sagittarius and Venus energy working together. Mercury moving into now the sign of Taurus. So here we see the influence of Mercury and Saturn. And then see right there, Taurus above and below, 8:34, 21, 26. And so imagery-wise, we take that sign of influence. Here we have Taurus and Gemini. We have Saturn and Mercury. So we take these influences of both of these. It's read Saturn play an influence of Taurus for putting discipline and structure into what's being worked on. And then we see Mercury, which is the planet of influence for Gemini. We start seeing it here building up. It's a connection. How do these two planets and signs, how do they work together? What's the communication that's going on? So there are about 3 cards, more or less, for each astrological month. And then we have Gemini. This is all full Gemini, where we have Mercury and Venus. And we see the opposing energies here. We see the connection. We see the bridge. We're seeing the understanding, communication, and an agreement, or something that could be of money, could be something related to the arts, something creative. So that's how we can use these moon mansion cards. We bring in the element of the signs and the planet placements. The only thing is if you have an astrology background, you're going to have to think differently because of the planet placements that are interpreted in the moon mansions. And this is what I love with this deck, is that it gets you thinking. Gets you thinking outside the norm and to explore different aspects, different possibilities of placing. Here we have Pluto and the moon, all in Cancer. And we have the Knight. We see someone here who's being very protective, which is of Cancer, protecting someone who is young. Holding the knife, but when you really look at it, or holding the sword, I shouldn't say knife, this protection is coming more from the heart. It's like this individual here doesn't really want to use this sword. Pluto is of transformation and shift and letting go. And so we could probably see this influence here, but this feeling here in this card is really of protection. So, as I mentioned, there's 28, and they all go through the different signs. So there's about 3 cards assigned to each of these mansions. I keep wanting to say decans, but they're not really decans in the way that we know them. So these cards, when it comes to doing readings with this deck, the Moon Mansion, gives us more information about the situation, the energy, again, of what's going on. Okay, I'll go back to this first card for Aries. Okay, we're seeing abruption in the background with this volcano. We see someone who's just getting ready to take action and has already been prepared. And so this is this is one way that we can read into these cards. We can use the keyword. You can feel environmentally how the scene is looking. It looks very ominous. It's very dark. It could be destructive. And that's where we start taking this into account. We start looking for the additional references. We have the Mars and Sun. Sun is the vitality of confidence and strength, and the Mars is of aggression, moving quickly. I mean, here we have the flames coming out from the top of the head of this illustration. So we feel this energy. It's building. It's very intense. Sun and Mars, very strong, fiery influences in this card. So that's where the Moon Mansion comes in when doing readings with this deck. So I'm going to do a quick layout at the end. I still have the goddesses to go through, and then I'll do a quick layout, and I'll show you from the chart how you can do these readings. You can actually do a Celtic cross reading with this. I haven't done that. The Celtic cross, I don't even use that layout. If someone wants a reading, I will, but me personally, I don't practice with that layout too much, and I'm starting to phase out layouts when doing readings. Sometimes I do need to because of the specifics and the nature of how I'm reading and what I'm using. But it's a personal layout. It's a layout that I would do customize based on the question that's being asked. So I want to show you very quickly this book too. It gives you will see the planetary influences, and you will see where they start in their astrological journey through each of the mansions, through Mars, the Sun, and then through Jupiter, and then we've got Venus, Mercury, and I think that is Saturn for Taurus, so on and so forth. So it gives a breakdown. And yes, so here we start 000 for Aries, 1251. So this is full Aries influence, Sun and Mars. And then our last, this is for Pisces. Pisces going into Aries. This is one of my favorite mansion cards, a sleeper. We see Pluto and the Moon. Are just good because we start seeing the transition of these cards as they go in from one sign into the next, one planet into the next. So here's a good example. See, here we have Mercury and Uranus into Mercury. Very wise. But they will shift, as I mentioned. Like this is number 27. Our Guru, another one of my favorite cards. And this is Pisces, but now we're moving from Pisces into Aries. So the planetary influence shifts as the sign transitions from one into the next. But again, the degrees, it's something more than likely you won't pay attention to, but it is of great help to see exactly where the signs will stop and start. And the same with the planetary placements. So again, the moon mansions, they give us more information about what's going on in that situation. 2018, when this edition was released, they gave moon tables. And these are for all the phases. You can see clearly of all the phases: Psalmic, dark, crescent, first, gibbous, full, disseminating, so on and so forth. And it keeps going. So it starts from 2016, and it goes all the way to 2032. And the same thing. Position of where the moon is, the sign that it's in, the phase that it's in. What you can do is, and I'm going to show an example of that when I do a reading in closing, how you can sort of determine time-wise the energy and what was going on at that particular moment of a situation that happened. If you know the date, of course, the date and the year, you can look through this moon ephemeris, or just any app that you have, go back in time, see where that energy was, and allocate it into the reading, and also apply it into the future. So it's fascinating. It brings, like I said, more of the astrology aspect into this deck, which is now the moon goddesses in this deck. There's 12, and they're divided into 4, and they're divided in such a way that they're broken up into seasons. So we have 4. We're going to work with the season that we're in right now. They have a white dot, and I'm going to fan them out like here, like so. So here's Artemis. For Aries, we have the astrological symbol there. And these 4 cards represent spring, the spring season. They represent the maiden. These goddesses are following the triple moon goddess, if you will, archaic. So there's our Artemis, there's Venus, Taurus, Athena, goddess of war, Gemini, and then Ishtar. This is sort of the end of Pisces, going into Aries, this kind of energy. We're getting ready to move out from the darker side of the Pisces energy and to revel out into the spring. So in the guidebook, these cards here represent creation, beginnings, fertility, growth. These are the goddesses. And again, they all represent the different astrological signs of influence. There is a breakdown of each of the goddesses and their strengths and their weaknesses. Also, to point out, put this back in order. I take this just for me. For Aries, I take this for the month of April. So Artemis can represent April. Taurus for May. Athena for June for Gemini. And then Ishtar for Pisces. I probably should do it like this. Should do Ishtar first, Pisces, and then Aries, Venus. So they represent these different seasons or these different stages during the season. You know, Aries, we're starting to build, the initiator, getting things going. Taurus, working with our sources that we have. We're starting to build that foundation. Gemini, communicating. How are we using our resources to our best interest? And then I have here, we go into the season of summer. This would be the mother state, and this would be of preservation. So everything that we've been building up, creating during the first 4 months, the early part of spring, we start getting into summer, we start preserving all that work. We take care of it, we prune it, we water it, we give it sustenance, we maintain it like what mother archetypes do. And here we have Hera for Cancer, Isis for Leo, strength, connection to the sun, beautiful. Demeter for Virgo, harvest, it's our harvest season. See the corn husks. Then Gaia for Libra, earth, creating that balance and harmony of earth. So those are the mother cards. That's for preservation. Spring, creation time. Summer, preserving, nurturing. And those are represented, see here, by the red dot. And then the crone stages. We have Lilith, represents Scorpio. We have the black dot there. Kali, Sagittarius, destruction. Now, some of the astrological signs may not click immediately to the goddesses, but the influences are still there. Hecate, Capricorn, underworld. And then Freya, for Aquarius. So this here represents our winter season, fall into winter. And actually, these two, just to back up, Lilith and Kali, definitely fall. And then these are our winter goddesses. Hecate and Freya. So again, the Moon Oracle book goes into a basic rundown of each of the goddesses. I'll show you. It goes into the traditional meaning, the myth behind them, and then the card meaning and what it represents. Lilith will represent the month of November. And then we have just a breakdown of that. And we also have the overall meaning, take control. That's for the month of Scorpio, water. And again, all of these goddesses, the 4 goddesses for each season, represents also the elemental influence for each of those signs. So Scorpio, we have water. Capricorn, we have earth. Sagittarius, fire. And then Aquarius for air. And then Kali is for December. We see that more for Sagittarius. The key phrase here is, if you fight, you will have to pay the price. So again, it gives a little bit about the myth. Very brief, traditional, what the interpretation of the imagery of the goddesses. And again, seasonally. We see rebirth with Hecate and Freya, death, endings, Kali and Lilith, preservation. We see through the summer months the goddesses there of Hera, Athena, Isis, and Demeter. And then the creation goddesses of Artemis, Ishtar, and Venus. So I feel this is a wonderful way to just bring in all these different energies and to use these influences with the goddesses during their different seasons. when working with this deck. It gives a wonderful perspective, a wonderful way of using the astrology of the moon in its phases and its signs and its planets. This is why I love this deck so much, because it's incorporating everything that I'm currently working with through the tarot, but specifically with the moon. Okay, so next, let's do a quick reading. I'm already some time in. Oh, I want to point out, this book is pretty thin, but it's chock full of information. It really gets to the point of what these cards mean. There could be some more information in it, but I feel when it comes to any form of guidebook, and if you're exploring a different way of reading a deck, because it's non-system, it has its own thing, own interpretation, I think it's good to have basic information. You should already have some understanding of how astrology works, just a little bit, knowing what the signs are and the planetary and their influences, just a little bit, because it makes growing with this deck easier. The mansion cards will take time. And here is just, like it says here, a quick key to the lunar mansion. So we have all 28, and it has the degrees, as you see here, when it starts, where it ends, the planetary influences, and then just brief meanings of what these cards mean. So like there's one here called the Pitcher, and that's for, it looks to be for Cancer, and the planetary influences of that is Pluto and Neptune. And the key for Pitcher is for helping each other, being supportive of someone who is in need, being there for that person. So they give quick keywords. They're not on here. It just gives the title of the card, but not the meaning. And this is good because, again, you could get a basic idea through the keywords, but then again, you can use this intuitively when you do your reading. So we have that keyword for the Pitcher, for the lunar mansion of Cancer, and with those influences of Pluto, and I think it was the moon, you can draw all of those elements and interpret the placement of what's going on based on the time, because we're going to also look at how the phases of the moon, time-wise, can give us almost a set outcome down the road when doing these readings. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to make this quick. I know you should never do a quick reading, but this is for an example. So we have here, we are doing a reading. There's I think 4 different layouts that are offered here. And there's the elemental cross, which I'm going to use for this example. And here our first card is the present state of the question. What moon phase are we at the moment that we do this reading? And then the second card gives us the background behind that moon phase, the underlying issues. And then we go through the moon mansion. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4 are the moon mansions. Excuse me here. 3, 4 are the moon mansions. Number 3 is what needs to be done. And number 4 is the outcome. So 3 here. 4 is more or less, looks like it's on the east side. 3 is on the west position. And then number 5 we go by the moon goddess. This is the action that, the guidance, if you will, that the moon goddess will give us. And again, the moon goddess represents a season, also represents the month, and so that's another way that you can, again, use time reference. The moon is at the time, so we are moon in Leo, or moon in Virgo. It's full moon, so that's going to be our first card. So we're going to look for a full moon in Virgo. Place this again. My apologies. You won't be able to see this, but I have to lay it out accordingly. And it's a call to action. And this is the Seven Sisters reading. And then, of course, there's the Celtic cross, which is more comprehensive. All right, so let's see what we have here. Very basic layout for working with this deck. So we have here, as I mentioned, where the focus is at this time, the full moon in Virgo. Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury, so we're seeing more of a time of where we're using our thoughts, how we are analyzing. This is the moon influence. This is very strong. We're finding that we're very particular about things. We want to get things, put things that are in order, looking at details of things to achieve what we need. This is where we are right now. It's going to be a very quick read because of time. And then here, this is the background. Investment. Now what we have here is the waxing earth moon. Okay, we just pulled the full moon. So what we do here is you can look in the guidebook and see when the next waxing earth moon will be. And I'm seeing this for July 13th, 2021. So you see what I'm saying? This is where we are right now in Aries. And here, this is the background. This is more or less the information, investment. So we look here at the back of the table, and we just go through the time frame, and we look when the next crescent earth moon will be. And so I have to double check this. So crescent, that already happened. So Cancer, fire, July 13th. And then there's a time when the crescent moon will be in Virgo. So we're going back to Virgo again for investment. So between this time now, March into July, and it's waxing, it's a time to start looking into investing into yourself, into your health, into something that you've been looking at and wondering if it is a good time. Consider doing this between now and that time. And again, we start seeing growth. This is going to be something, again, with Virgo, the Virgo influence. We're going to really be careful. We're going to really analyze everything that we are going to take in that direction for this investment to start growing and for it to eventually become successful. And then we have the moon mansions. And here's another time influence. I have to look because, see, this is what I don't like about layouts, because you have to, what needs to be done next. Okay. This is card, the Moon Mansion, what needs to be done next. And if you look here, we're in Aquarius, the rebel. We see the planetary influences of Uranus and Mercury. So we take all those influences as to, what needs to be done next. Here we start seeing that it's a time of flipping things around, changing your perspective of things, being more idealistic, giving some space on what's going on, and communication, very important. This is an air sign here. So we have 2 Virgo and we have air. So we're going to be communicating in a way that may be a little surprising for people because of the perspective that is being taken, a different way of seeing a situation that will eventually lead to an understanding that people weren't even aware of. It's like, oh, that's why you did what you did. Now I see it. It may sound out of the ordinary when you first start. You don't even have to tell anyone. But it seems like what makes sense to you and not sense to other people, you follow through with that. You stand by your beliefs because you feel it is for the best outcome towards what you're working for. And here is our outcome card. Okay, so we see Neptune and Venus, and we're in transition. We see Aquarius going into Pisces. And Venus and Neptune. So Aquarius into Pisces. We're going from the air into the water. It's a time of conflict. Neptune deals with, mysterious, the unknown, looking within ourselves. But we can't be held in the situation for too long. Venus represents care, love, also financial aspects. I want to lean, maybe this reading that I just did randomly could be talking about more of a financial thing. You don't want to be held down to anything that's going to really emotionally leave you in fear. Because we're going from that expansive energy of Aquarius thinking and just like, yeah, let's just do it. Just trust me. And then making a choice that may not have worked out and being held prisoner by your own feelings, your own emotions. You need to create some space. We need some space to move. It's very important. And then here's something very appropriate. Our goddess of action is Kali. So here, she is, in a sense, forcing us destruction. Nothing's going to hold you back. This is Sagittarius, which is kind of an interesting goddess to be placed, or interesting sign to be placed with this goddess, because Sagittarius really, I don't feel it's very destructive. It represents the season. We could say for Sagittarius, this would represent December, which is the winter months. For some people, the winter months can be unnerving and maybe almost like cabin fever. You just you have all this pent up energy. Use it constructively, though. Destroying, breaking down old ways, old habits, old actions, old ways of thinking. is always good, but you don't want to overdo it. You know, there's a reason why you're removing and you're letting go. You're trying to create space, trying to create more room for something new to happen. Like here we have the achievement, the investment cards for the full moon, where we are right now. And then coming in July, between now and July, investments. Okay, this could be personal investment, it could be financial, material. And then we have the rebel, different way of seeing things, maybe not listening to what other people are saying because you feel and you see something different. I'm actually relating this reading right now to something of a choice that I'm having to make. And then here we have the prisoner, you know, just being held down by your own fears, uncertainty, and learning to, with that Venus influence, to find that compassion, that self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. You don't have to do this to yourself. And if need be, Kali. Call upon Kali to just help you let go and be released of what's holding you back. You know, breaking down these fears. This is a fearless goddess. She's a protector of her own, who will destroy anyone that will get in their way if she feels it is going to be of a challenge. Elemental layout for this moon oracle. And it's very nice because, as I said, you can read the cards visually for, you know, how they are and what they mean, but also tie it in with the planets and the astrological placement during that moon mansion. So you could tie in a whole bunch of different information within the moon mansion and with the goddess, and also with the phases of the moon. So it's a wonderful way to do readings. So that's it. I will be doing a similar reading, probably like this, the small layout for Mystic Moon Mondays. Please join me. I do Mystic Moon Mondays twice a month. I don't have a set date, but I tend to do it to make the announcement about a week before. So I will be doing Mystic Moon Monday this Monday on the 29th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And again, we talk about moon energy. I'm going to be introducing the Moon Oracle deck more now since I've done this video, and I've given a pretty general overview of how to work with these different attributes with the goddesses and the moon phases and the signs and the planets, and how they can fall time-wise when doing a reading. It can be used predictive, so this deck is leaning more towards the astrological side of doing readings, but we're doing it through the cards instead of doing it through charts. And there are some charts that you can make reference to, but this is something that I feel can be self-guided the more you work with this. So it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. I'm so happy I have this. Questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I do live readings now once a week, and I have a website. I do readings. Feel free to contact me. I'm on Instagram, my website, Patreon, which I haven't been pushing, but I have a Patreon account. Feel free to visit that, show support of what I'm sharing. So that's it. I will leave you with this.